In August, when the summer heat was oppressive, my ex-fiancé, Matthew, dropped a bombshell that I never saw coming. It wasn't a fiery confrontation or a tearful argument. Instead, he casually sat me down, his eyes darting nervously to the side as he nervously shifted in his seat. His voice cracked as he told me, "I think we need a break. I just need some time to focus on myself." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight, and for a moment I was paralyzed with confusion. He wasn't angry with me. He didn't have any specific grievances. He just said he needed space, and I could tell by his lack of emotion that this wasn't about us at all. It was about something else entirely. I was heartbroken, of course. The thought that we'd been building something together, something that I thought was solid and unbreakable, could now be put on hold. But I loved him, despite the cracks I'd started noticing in our relationship. And I tried to be understanding. I agreed, though a sick feeling gnawed at the back of my mind. My heart didn't want to believe it, but my instincts were already starting to scream. Something was off. Over the next 2 weeks, he spent more and more nights at his friend's house, a place I'd never heard of before. He'd been vague about the details, claiming it was a guy from work. I didn't question it immediately, figuring that if he was truly focused on bettering himself, this break was necessary. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to his sudden withdrawal. As the days passed, I noticed a subtle shift in our shared space. His gym bag, which had been haphazardly left by the door, was growing increasingly disorganized. Dirty laundry piled up beside it, along with papers scattered around, random scraps of notes, receipts, old bills, and a few things I didn't recognize. One night, after a long day of work and an even longer stretch of pretending everything was fine, I decided to clean up. It was simple enough. A bit of tidying here, some folding there. But then I noticed it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked underneath a gym sock. The handwriting was neat and elegant, a clear contrast to the chaos of the surrounding clutter. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was something old, something he'd forgotten to deal with. But when I unfolded it, my breath caught. The words were unmistakable. "I miss you so much. I can't wait to see you again. I think about you all the time. You make me feel things I never knew were possible. I feel so alive with you. Let's take this slow, but I really think we have something special." And at the bottom, in soft ink, was the signature. Heart, Allison. I didn't even need to read it twice to understand what had happened. My heart raced with a mixture of rage and betrayal. Each beat a hammer against my chest. There was no mistaking it. He'd been seeing someone else, and I had been too blind to notice. As if that weren't enough, I didn't even know who this Allison was. He'd never mentioned her. With trembling fingers, I grabbed my phone. I didn't have time for second-guessing or wondering what might be going on in his head. This was the last straw. He'd broken my trust. And now I was going to break him back. Without hesitation, I snapped a picture of the note and posted it to a Facebook group I'd joined months earlier, one dedicated to exposing cheaters and sharing stories of betrayal. I wasn't interested in pity or sympathy. No, this was about retribution. I sat back, almost coldly detached, as my phone buzzed with notifications. His family, his coworkers, his friends, all the people who'd witnessed our relationship from the outside, saw the post. And Allison. Poor, clueless Allison. She found out in real time, just like the rest of them. There was no turning back now. In the hours that followed, my phone exploded with messages. His family's initial confusion gave way to disbelief, then to outrage. His coworkers flooded the post with comments, throwing in their 2 cents, and many of them shared their own stories of his insincerity and immaturity. Everyone had something to say, and none of it was good. But it was Allison who I focused on. She didn't know what she was getting into. She didn't know what kind of man he really was. So I took it upon myself to share everything I had learned over the course of our relationship. How he love-bombed me in the beginning, showering me with attention, gifts, and promises. How he'd drawn me in with his charm. only for it to fizzle out the moment the honeymoon phase was over. How, despite how much he'd talked about his passion for motorcycles, he could never seem to prioritize our life together. He'd always find a way to spend his money on his truck or his bike, leaving nothing for rent or shared expenses. It had always been about him, about what he wanted. I wasn't the only one who felt betrayed. As soon as I told Allison about the kind of man he was, how he had no interest in my needs, how he couldn't even satisfy me in bed, she quickly realized she'd been duped. She, too, dumped him. She started going off about him to anyone who would listen. Co-workers, friends, anyone in earshot. As the gossip spread like wildfire, his reputation crumbled. At first, he tried to downplay everything, to maintain the illusion of being the charming, perfect guy. But it wasn't working. His co-workers, his old friends from his last job, even people from his parents' church, they all saw him for what he was. It stung him, I could tell. His carefully constructed image of a guy who had it all together began to fray at the edges. The more he tried to salvage his pride, the more he looked ridiculous. But the real cherry on top was when I moved out in early October. I had finally had enough. I found a small apartment, one that was mine and mine alone, and I reveled in the freedom it brought. No more walking on eggshells around him. No more pretending everything was fine. I was free. And with that freedom came a sense of power I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Still, he wasn't done with me. One night, late in October, I received a message from him. It was long and rambling, tinged with a sense of desperation. He talked about filing for bankruptcy, about how hard everything was for him. It was the same old sob story, the same attempt to manipulate me into feeling sorry for him. He wanted me to feel pity, to be his emotional crutch. I didn't respond right away. I didn't owe him anything. Instead, I took the time to do something I'd been thinking about for weeks. Something that felt right. Something that felt like closure. I went to my bathroom where the engagement ring he'd given me sat in its box. I stared at it for a long moment, weighing the options. But I knew what needed to be done. I turned on the camera of my phone, and with a deliberate calm, I filmed myself flushing the ring down the toilet. Then, I messaged him. I included the video, along with a caption. I'm with someone else now. And here's a little something for you. By the way, I'm a lot happier now. I hope you figure your shit out. I added a sexy selfie for good measure. Something that would make him squirm. At the time, I'd dropped a significant amount of weight, going from 160 pounds to 125, and I wanted him to see what he'd lost. His response? Pure chaos. He didn't know what to do with himself. I knew it, and part of me reveled in it. The arrogance he'd once had, the smug sense of superiority, was gone. Now it was just anger and frustration. He wasn't the center of attention anymore, and it was eating him alive. As for me, I was living my best life. The revenge, in its own twisted way, felt cathartic. But more than that, I had grown stronger. I had taken control of my life, my body, my future. The man who'd betrayed me was now a shadow of his former self. And I was thriving. I hope he never cheats on anyone again. Not because I care about him, but because I want him to understand the price of betrayal. As for me, I moved on. I wasn't just healed. I was reborn. The girl who had once been so trusting, so naive, was gone. In her place stood someone who could fight back when pushed. Someone who knew her worth. I knew my journey wasn't over, but I'd taken the first step, and that was all I needed to feel free.